Hi everyone. I just wanted to start off by saying thank you to all of you who watched my last video. I got so many positive messages and encouraging words from you all who said this video either helped with your spiritual growth or your personal growth or your healing in some way. And that means the most to me, really. That's why I'm doing this. That's why I've chosen to share our story in such a public way, is because I do believe in my heart that there's a way to help people through this grief and this tragedy that my husband and I have faced. So I'm so glad that several of you all not only watched, but were kind enough to send those encouraging messages. So I'm looking forward to sharing more. And I know in my last video, I talked about my personal healing process and mentioned a bit about how that hasn't always looked so linear and hasn't followed this perfect pattern from one stage to the next. I've wavered, I've waned, I've gone through it all, and it's been quite the roller coaster. So today I just wanted to share part of what that emotional healing has looked like for me. And I think that there's just so much to talk about. I'm probably going to have to do 2 videos, but at least in this part 1, let's call it, I'll touch on some of the ways that I went through at least the initial parts of my grieving and just what that looked like for me, and hopefully how it can help some other people, just knowing you're not alone. So I guess the first bit of advice that I'll share is immediately after hearing the news and getting through that traumatic labor and delivery process. My husband and I came home to, not an empty house, because we had, thankfully, and we're so grateful to have had our closest family stay with us. But we came home to a house without a baby, a house without the crying and the joy and laughter from family members and loved ones that we were expecting and envisioning. It was just a really different scene. So as soon as I got home, in those initial days to follow, emotionally, all I wanted to do was isolate. I didn't want to talk on the phone. I didn't want to text anyone, even my best friends, my closest friends and family. I was wanting to isolate from, which is so, as I say that, it's just so contrary to my own personality. I've always been one to get my energy from other people, and I thrive in social settings, and I just love being around other people. And that is the last thing I wanted to do in those initial days. At home, I wanted to cry, I wanted to sulk, and I wanted to be alone. And now on the other side of that, and I guess further along in my healing, I'm coming to know that those feelings were completely normal. And for any other person, any other mother going through what I went through, I'd hope to share that those feelings are completely normal. And the best, potentially most healthy piece of advice that I can offer is let yourself feel all of that. Know that suppressing those emotions, whatever you're feeling, and as dark as it may become, it's completely normal. So allow yourself to feel, because suppressing those emotions is perhaps the most unhealthy thing that someone grieving can do. So while I felt that need to isolate, that need to just cry and cry, I had so many nights where I would just bawl. It's completely normal. And I was thankfully surrounded by family who allowed me to feel that, who put their arms around me in the most loving way and gave me a healthy space to feel what I was feeling. So those were, that's really what the initial days looked like for me. They were pretty dark. But as my pattern of healing progressed, I was able to transition from that darker, quieter, more depressed place, for lack of a better term, I did slowly get to a point where I was able to increase my interactions. And what that looked like for me was allowing myself to get dressed and go out, whether that be to the grocery store to pick up some things, or out to eat with my family, or just for a light walk. That's what I would call that second stage of emotional healing look like for me. I want to pause there because that was a very hard stage for me. Not only was I opening myself up to the outside world again when the last thing I felt like doing in the days prior was getting out, but I was also opening myself up to seeing other pregnant women, seeing babies in strollers, hearing babies cry, even in us going back to restaurants that we used to frequent. I would be faced with servers and people at the restaurant who asked about our baby and if he was here and how the delivery went. So imagine this wound, this deep wound that you are trying to heal that's now being opened back up. So as soon as I'm trying to form, for an analogy's sake, a bit of a scab, someone's come and opened it back up and it started to bleed. So I don't say that to scare other women from progressing to that second stage of emotional healing, but just to be honest in what's to come. And I'll mention this, one of the first places actually that my husband and I did go back to that was particularly hard emotionally was back to church. So I remember we went back to church on a Sunday, and I was actually at a new congregation. So in my previous video, I did mention feeling as though I drifted from God a lot. And that's very true. I was at the point in my life where I thought I had everything in control. And I realized that I did not. And I did talk about having to surrender to God's plan, which I'm still very actively doing. But in that inward reflection, and in me coming to terms with the fact that I had drifted from God, he had not drifted from me, but I had drifted from him, I said, Asia, it's time to try a different congregation, a different church where I could feel more of a community, serve more, help others, love others. So in this first visit to this new congregation, my husband and I sit down. First, we're greeted really warmly by everybody at this new church. Then we sit down and we're ready for the service to begin. And the minister comes up on stage, and the first thing he mentions is, thank you everyone for your prayers. My wife is at home healthy with our newborn baby girl, and we are so elated, and we're just thankful to all of you for our prayers because they're both doing great. So while that's a very joyous moment for them, it was also an affirmation of what my husband and I just went through that's still very raw. And those are the types of things that happen when you open yourself up to that second stage, what I'm calling the second stage of emotional healing, which is just getting out. None of those things do I regret because they've helped my healing. In fact, this is reality, and I cannot, nor do I want to escape from reality right now, because I've come to embrace how it's allowed me to grow. So that second stage of emotional healing is pretty difficult. And I just want to be honest with other women about what they could potentially encounter. What's helped me also is staying in the present and staying positive. Again, with my personality type, it's very easy for me to get so far ahead of myself in this planning, in this future state. And as I've progressed in my emotional healing, I've incorporated even more strategies to keep me grounded, to help me cope and to stay in the present, whether that be acknowledging where I am with all of my senses in this moment. That helps me not fixate and get anxiety on what's to come. So that's just one simple strategy that I've employed that has helped me stay present as I continue to heal. But I want to say one of the other things that's become very important to me throughout this process is allowing myself to submit to what God's purpose is for me. And that word purpose, I mean, when I think about it, it's pretty deep, and it begs the question, what am I even here for? Why am I here on this earth living and breathing? Why? And this experience with our angel baby Aiden has made me question that more than I ever have in my life, is what am I here for? Again, going back to the initial stages of emotional healing where it's so dark, you question that. Why am I even here? What's my purpose? When God allows the thing that you've longed for and already loved so much to be taken away from you, you question why you're even here. I was in that place. And as I turn that to a more positive thing, and instead of being bitter or being angry at God, I can honestly say I was never angry at God. While I questioned and I was very confused, I was never angry at God. I was just more so wondering why. So as I reflected on my purpose and what I'm here on earth for, I was called to this book. And this book, I am not finished yet, but it's actually already shaped me and my thinking so much that I have to share it with you all. So the book is by Rick Warren, and it's called The Purpose Driven Life. So I'm actually, if you can see this, I'm actually in the middle of this book right now. It's a 40-day plan. He calls you to read one chapter each day. Again, I've mentioned it several times already. I like to get ahead of myself. I'm very proactive, but I've even employed some self-control to say I'm going to do exactly what the author suggests. I'm just reading one chapter at a time for the next 40 days. That way I have time to reflect on the messages and what I'm really supposed to get. But this book has been so very impactful for me so far. And one of the things that Rick Warren says in this book that really stuck with me is when you're trying to find out what your purpose is, it's almost like getting this invention. If someone hands you this invention that you have never seen before, it doesn't resemble anything that you've ever utilized, and you have no idea what it does, the only way to realize what that invention is for is to ask the creator, the person that made that invention, or to read the owner's manual. Otherwise, you're not going to know what its intent is. The same applies to us as human beings, as God's creations. The only way to know our true purpose in life is to ask our creator or go to his word. So that really resonated with me. It gave me chills, and I thought, wow, that is so profound and so true. So that's what I've been seeking out, is I've been seeking out God's direction and God's word to find out how can I make my life even more purposeful, not for me, not in a self-centered way, but in God's way, in doing exactly what he put me on this earth for. Because as long as we are breathing, as long as the blood is flowing warm in our bodies, we're here for a reason. We're not here by accident. So that really resonated with me, along with the fact that every experience in our life can be viewed as a different season, so to speak. So right now, my husband and I are in this grief season. But while we're in the midst of this, and while it seemed very dark and confusing and chaotic at times, there's a reason for it. And there's a lot that we can learn from it. So grief is a season. Celebration is a season. Change and transition is a season. If you're moving, and these seasons are very defining. And when you really ask yourself questions about the season and take time to reflect, you can realize a lot about why you are in the season that you're in and what's meant to be learned from that season. So there's actually a section I want to read from this book. It's on page 55, and there are 4 questions that Rick Warren asks you to ask yourself if you're in the middle of one of these seasons, because everybody's in a season of life. It's a different season, but everybody is in a season. So he asks, ask yourself, what can I learn? So for me, in this situation that my husband and I are going through with the stillbirth of our baby Aiden, what I can learn is a lot of love, a lot of empathy, a lot of kindness and compassion towards others. My husband and I, we talk and communicate on a deeper level and more often than we ever have in our marriage. That's been a real positive for us that's come on the heels of this tragedy. But what I've learned is you really never know what people are going through in their season of life. So to just be kind, it sounds very cliche, but to just be kind and be compassionate and have empathy towards others is, I think, what we all need more of. And that's something that I've already tried to apply in my life. And I feel as though, when I transition back into what will become the new normal for my husband and I will be able to apply this on a whole new level because of what we've gone through. Even when I go back to my job, thinking, how can I be more empathetic? How can I be more kind? How can I be more loving to those that I encounter? That's a huge learning for me as I've gone through this process. Second question that Rick asked, that we ask ourselves, is what can I enjoy? And you think, I've just gone through the hardest time of my life. I just lost my baby. And you're asking me to ask myself, what can I enjoy? But that's important as well, because there's still beauty in life. There's still many things that I can smile about, that other mothers who are going through or have gone through this can also smile about. So when I ask myself that, it's just enjoying, I can enjoy my personal and spiritual growth journey. I can enjoy the fact that I'm getting closer to God than I ever have in my life, that I wake up in the morning and I actually desire to read his word, and not only to read his word, but to apply it and to share it with other people. That's real joy that comes from that. And I enjoy the fact that I'll be able to become part of a community of believers, part of a community of resilient people who have gone through a lot of things in life. And I think we all become stronger just as human beings when we can join together over suffering. Another thing that Rick Warren mentions in this book, The Purpose-Driven Life, he talks about when we share our joys with each other, it's magnified times 2. When we share a joy with one other person, it's magnified times 2. When we share a suffering with one other person, it's cut in half. So just being a part of a community, as I mentioned earlier in this video, surrounding yourself with people who love you genuinely and authentically care about you is so important in the emotional healing journey. So that's what I enjoy. Third question he mentions, what is most important in this season? For me, in my season, what's most important is making sure that I stay positive and present. Making sure that I, while allowing myself to feel all of my emotions, also reflect on the positivity. There's so much positivity. I mentioned it in the first video, but feeling Aiden kick and playing classical music for him and just all the joy that he brought my husband and I. It was so meaningful and still is so meaningful to both of us. So it's important for me to realize there are so many positives. There's positives in just how we've been able to share our story and impact others already so early into this journey. So staying positive, staying present, not allowing myself to revert into an unhealthy place, and not allowing myself to get so far ahead that it becomes overwhelming and fills me with unhealthy emotions. So that's very important to me. And the final question is, how can I help others in this season? And for me in my journey, that's exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is not a comfortable thing for me to do, to say the least, is to get on a very public forum and share something so painful. But why I'm doing it is because I know, and I'm confident in my heart, I believe that there's a way that we can help others in this season of life that we're going through right now, just by sharing our story, just by getting out of that comfort zone, to share our story and put ourselves out there. I think there's a lot of benefit that will come from that. And I believe that as long as God is at the helm, which he always will be, I know that there's going to be positive that comes from this. So I'm excited for that. And I really look forward to that. As I mentioned, there's so much to share in terms of emotional healing, positive transformation, and how I've been motivated by all of this. And I really am going to put together a part 2, because there's more substance, and there's more that I can share that I believe will help other women. Just like I said, in terms of motivation, and how much this has made me just want to be a better believer, a better person, a better wife, a better friend, a better daughter. I'm looking forward to sharing that. But thank you all for joining me so far, and I'm really eager for what's to come. So looking forward to it.